changing. We're flying high, creating a complaint-free world. No more, no more complaining. People, their lives are changing. We're flying high, creating a complaint-free world. No more, no more.
All right, we're going to welcome on our guest here. And if you are watching us live, feel free to ask questions of Steve as we are talking. And also, if you are watching later, be sure and make comments, questions, and share. And we'll get Steve to answer as much as we can. And I'm really honored to have him here with us today. Let me tell you a little bit about Steve Hughes. Steve's the author of Captivate, and he's been featured on NPR, CBS, BBC Radio, The Wall Street Journal, and Business Week. And for over a decade, he has been making a difference in increasing revenue for Fortune 500 companies, small businesses, and national associations. And since I am currently my own producer, there we go. Hello, Steve. Good morning. How are you?
Great. How you doing, Will?
Good. It's nice to meet you.
You too. And it's so cool to be a part of what you're doing, and just seeing your movement and the whole complaint-free vibe you have. It's really great to be a part of it.
Thank you. Thank you. And you are our first guest of this series that we're starting. So
perfect.
Be gentle with me. Be nice. And by the way, I like your hairstyle.
Thank you. Well, I'll tell you what, I wanted to imitate the host as best I could. And I know one thing that we have in common, we certainly love convertibles, right? So
that is true. So, do you have a convertible?
I don't. Actually, my first car was a hand-me-down 72 Oldsmobile convertible, but I don't think that's what took my hair.
No. When I was in China speaking, someone said that the reason Americans lose their hair is we drink coffee.
Oh.
They said that the Chinese don't drink coffee, but then I see a lot of bald Chinese people too. So
that's funny. Anyway. Yeah, but a world without coffee, I don't know. It's a trade-off. I guess I'd rather do the coffee and have less time working on my hairdo.
Yeah, that's sort of a common theme here on our show, is that we talk a lot. Everybody usually says grateful for coffee, grateful for coffee. Well, I want to jump right in and talk about, because you have some concepts that improv performers use that you feel help us fulfill our own lives at work and home. Could you share what that is?
Absolutely. My 20-second story is I was in advertising and PR for 12, 15 years, and I took a dare to do stand-up comedy, and that shifted into improv. And this is all on the side. And then it was through that a law firm in Chicago asked me to come up and help them add more improv and humor to their world. And that's kind of what launched me to what I do now. What I didn't know, and I got into it, and maybe many people are surprised to hear, is when you watch improv comedians do their thing, right? They're so funny and with it, but they're following an ironclad set of tight principles. But from those principles,
I'm sorry, I thought it was just scatting around and back and forth and like a ping pong ball in a hurricane.
Exactly. Well, that's the genius of it. I mean, because here's the whole thing. Let's say you and I are in a scene together. Whatever the topic, let's just say coffee, coffee, right? So we could be at a coffee shop, we could be coffee growers, we could be two friends meeting up for coffee. Doesn't matter what the thing is, but whatever you would say or do to me as my scene partner, we consider that an offer. If you have an accent, if we're best friends, I'm suddenly your dad, we're enemies, whatever, that's an offer. And what improv teaches is everything that comes to you in a scene or really in life is an offer. And it's our job to accept it, because you can't change it. I can't make you undo your offer, but I can accept it. And then I agree with it. I say yes. And then I add on to it. I build onto it. I add something to the scene. And we just kind of go back and forth. So each person's giving and offering. The other person's always accepting and adding to it. That's how you kind of go back and forth. And it's something I did not really realize was going on, but it's a great way to live as well.
Is it true that in improv, the concept is that, I had heard this, I don't know if it's true, the idea is to always say yes?
Correct. Yes. It's the simplified version is yes and, right? So you always say
yes and. Okay.
Correct. Right. And the quick, well, let's go with all the positive. I'll talk up what some people sometimes complain about when I say that, because you say, I don't want to be a yes man, but we'll get to that in a minute. But
right.
The thought is, the research out there, and there's all sorts of books and research on happiness and whatnot, but those who are the most contented and satisfied in life seem to be those who accept reality. So I accept reality, so I say yes to it, and then you do something with it. So let me give you an example. Let's say you work with some folks in a company, and a new person comes along and says, "Hey, we should try this." Now, improv says say yes, but what if you tried that idea 3 years ago? What if we tried that idea 3 years ago and it doesn't work? So your tendency is that, well, no, it's not going to work. Stop bringing up ideas. But if you say, hey, that's so cool. What made you want to bring that up? You don't necessarily have to say the word yes all the time, but there's an idea behind the suggestion, right? So maybe we can't do what you're suggesting, but let's go a few onion layers behind that and see, well, what was the genesis of that idea, and let's explore that a little bit. So then, and tell me more about it. So that's accepting an offer. I didn't shut it down. I didn't blatantly say yes, let's do it when I know it won't work. But I'm honoring that person's suggestion, creativity, even courage to bring something up. So that's really how it can work, even when you can't really say yes. But it's a lot more fun when you can say yes, clean and clear.
Sure. Yeah. I think the idea, if I'm getting you correctly, is hard no's are bad, are not good,
Yeah.
but either a yes and, or at least some ambiguity. Because it's so funny you brought this up. I live in a condo complex here in Key Largo, Florida, and there are people breaking the rules all the time. And people complain about people breaking the rules. So I
Right.
suggested that we have an on-site person and posted that in the forum. And I guess 15 years ago, they had a person and it didn't
Uh-oh.
go well. So now that's like a bad idea. We can't do that. And I'm thinking,
Yeah.
just because it was poorly executed or you hired the wrong person or whatever doesn't mean it's a bad idea. But boy, it got shut down.
Well, Will, great example. So let's say you bring that up, a proper way, let's say a better way to receive
we
that
go.
idea is to say, hey, that's so cool. What made you think of it? That sort of thing. Okay, maybe it may not be a security person, but is there maybe a neighborhood watch, or there's some other thing we could think of, or a different security, who knows what, but there's obviously an issue. You've sensed it, other people sense it. Let's not just shut down the conversation, because you never know what might, lead to one thing or another. Yeah, and then plus, let's be honest, how willing are you now to want to bring up another idea? Right?
I'm not. I'm not.
Let's say that idea wouldn't have worked, fine. But if
Right.
they would have been more welcoming and hey, cup of coffee, bring in the idea, let's talk about it and think it through. Maybe your next idea could be the one that's, oh my goodness, would just change the condo complex completely, unrelated to security or whatever it might be. But now you're in a position that I don't want to put myself out there. And too often that happens in companies. I mean, to me, it's a weird corollary. Maybe it's an evil cousin of the complaint, right? So it's the saying no and shutting people down. Then you wonder, gosh, why don't my people come to me with ideas anymore?
Yeah.
Well, it shouldn't take a rocket scientist to figure out what the deal is.
Well, and I do see that, and I'm not concerned about people here watching this, because I know some do, but I would say the same things. I've noticed that there is a lamenting. Why can't we get people to volunteer? But when they do volunteer and try and execute things, then they are micromanaged, overruled, et cetera, et cetera. So what I'm hearing you say is, when someone comes to you, be open to the issue behind it, not necessarily the solution they're presenting, because it's so
Exactly.
easy to shut down the solution.
It should be the start of a conversation, right? It should be an idea. Again, it's an offer, it's an expression. It should be a beginning, a commencement. It should not be if it's not perfectly buttoned up, or it's all paid for, or it'll every jot and tittle will work out, then we can't do it. No, it's a starting point.
Interesting. Yeah. And to your point, it's true that I was like, at first I was like, hey, what about this? And then I started getting this mountain of stuff, and I was like, okay, I won't ever suggest anything again.
Right. Exactly. And I always appreciate and have courage. I'll never forget when I was head of an intern program. I used to work at Nestle Purina, and we had a young intern come in, and one time it's the people who have the courage to stand up, knowing that it might get thrown in their face, but they say it anyway. And we had a brainstorm that wasn't going very well on a particular issue. I think we were trying to get more people to buy dog food during the holidays. I don't remember what it was. And maybe Ted Bear would have loved that. But the but no one had a good idea. And then it was Mindy at the very end of the meeting who said, I have an idea. And she's kind of crystallized everything, put herself out there after a meeting of a lot of no's and not going anywhere. The point being, if she hadn't said that, she would have robbed us of a great solution, right? But it took almost like the out of the mouths of babes in terms of like just youth, kind of thing. And I just think for all of us, it's hard to put yourself out there when you're in an environment when people are going to shut you down, but to say, just keep trying, because you never know, that next idea might be the one that will be accepted, that will spring something better.
Yeah. And to tie into my field of expertise too, and that is that it's complaining if all you're doing is going around talking to people who can't do anything about it.
Right.
And if you're talking about what is wrong and what is missing, as opposed to what is present and how we can build on it.
Correct.
And yeah.
And actually, that's another key aspect of improv. We always think, oh, they're making something up out of nothing. But if you think about it, whether the suggestion is coffee or French fries or the back seat of an airplane, doesn't matter what the suggestion is. People aren't making up out of nothing. They're bringing their own experience, their own background, their voice, their perspective. They're bringing all that together, and then and putting it kind of in a pot together on stage and saying, okay, what can we do with this? What with what we have, what can we do, kind of thing. And I think that goes to what you're just talking about.
Wonderful. I mentioned at the start of the show today that I was in Springfield speaking a few days ago and went to Lincoln's home, et cetera. And now I'm reading a book called Abe. And Lincoln was very big on first impressions. He would talk often about it's very important to make a first impression. And I understand you've got a code or a secret for us to help us make a first impression, which is very important. Tell us about that.
Yeah, it's almost so. It's both obvious and yet very rarely done. It's kind of the thing, is when you're making a first impression, we always think about and heard the studies of you got to do it in the first 0.07 seconds
right.
or something, And yes, we do form an opinion of someone. Oh my goodness, I love their hairstyle or that sort of thing. But really, the simplest, best way think about the people you enjoy spending time with. I'm guessing that, and let's go outside of any kind of blood relations, or let's say it's just friends you spend time with. I'm guessing on some level, they're the ones who are consistently asking more questions, listening more, and putting you in the spotlight and letting you be heard, so to speak. And I always say to people, the best way to never, if you ever never have a pregnant pause ever again in a conversation, when you're out, someone, let's say you're having a little cocktail gathering or something, but maybe at the condo complex, and you have that awkward, weird time where you're both like, what's your favorite color? Right. So as I say, just play tag with people. So when someone asks you a question of any sort, you don't just answer it. You answer, but you always tag it with a question back on the end to the next person. Right? It's always you're playing catch. So they ask you a question, answer. What about you? And that sounds so simple, and yet how often do people not do it?
Say it again. What about you? That's the key takeaway from this, is after you say your part, is just to say something very simple, which tosses the ball back to them. And I love that. What about you, Steve?
And here's an example. Both my parents lost them to pancreatic cancer a couple of years ago. And, I think everyone everywhere is touched by cancer. And it's a great example of how it works. Let's say someone mentions, oh yeah, my loved one has some kind of cancer. And then someone else will want to come alongside and say, yes, my mom or my cousin has it too. That's a great connection, but don't now make it about your mom or your cousin. Kind of gets a simple thing of, hey, oh, I'm so sorry you're going through that. My dad has cancer as well. How's it going for you? In other words, I'll connect with you on the idea. We're in the same boat, but I want to make sure it's back on you. You're the one who is going to still be, you're the one who still needs to have your time in the sun on that issue.
Now you're in the Midwest, right? Where are you?
Oh yes. Yeah. Right smack dab in the middle, St. Louis, Missouri.
Oh, I just
I know you're a car away. I should have come by and seen you.
I know, and I'm headed to Kansas City. My daughter lives in Kansas City, and I'm there all the time. So maybe I'd love to meet you, because every time I tell people what I do for a living, they say, oh, well, you must know Steve Hughes. And I'm like, we're never on the stage at the same time.
Right,
if you hired me, I'm not going to see Steve, because I'm either the opener or the closer or vice versa.
Yeah, exactly.
So I met a guy in Kansas City. his name is Steve, and I fell in love with this dude. I mean, just really like this guy. And whenever I would get home from being hanging out with Steve, going to a ball game or a concert or getting a beer, I would always go, he never talks about himself. All
Uh,
he does is ask me
right.
about me. And so one night I literally planned, I'm going to do nothing but say, tell me about you. Tell me about your son. Tell me about your wife. How's your business going? And son of a gun, he did it again. He spun it all around to where it was all about me.
Wow.
And I love talking about me. And I'm sure
Exactly.
you do
Right.
too.
In fact, you kind of connect. It was a connective tissue you just mentioned there that made me think of the first part about the improv. Is that when you get the chance to talk about yourself and someone legitimately listens, right? They really are listening, not just
Right.
asking a question. And similarly, when someone makes an idea, makes an offer, a suggestion, puts something out there, and it's received, it's celebrated, it's honored, whether you can do it or not. But it's like, oh, thanks for okay, cool. Let's talk about that. The other person feels three things, and I love this. It comes from a professor at University of Rochester. Harry Reese is his name, and when people will feel three things, and if they do that, any relationship you're in, business, personal, romantic, will thrive. And they need to feel or perceive these three things. And I have my little hand motions too. So it's U.
I'm going to
V,
type
and
them in the
C,
comment
okay?
section.
U,
U, V,
V, C,
C. Okay.
and it stands for they'll feel understood, they'll feel
Okay.
valued, and they'll feel cared for. Understood, valued, and cared for. And I'm a little hand puppet here. But the thought is, think about it. When Steve is asking you questions, you feel understood, valued, and cared for. When your boss recognizes your work and says, good job, you feel understood, valued, and cared for. And Gallup will tell you, you look at almost any survey, people leave businesses all the time and or leave jobs all the time, mainly because of a boss, but because on some level they didn't feel one of those three things on a consistent basis. And so
Understood, valued, or cared
anybody can
for.
do it.
1 out of every 10 people who quit their jobs quit because of complaining coworkers.
Oh, there you go.
So, to me, as a top, and it's always the top performers, by the way. It's never your worst people. They're always like, this is home.
The wrong people are leaving. Yeah.
Exactly. So, as a top performer within a company, if there's a rampant complaining, I would not feel understood. I certainly wouldn't feel valued, and I
No.
would not feel cared for
Not at
either.
all.
So I love the connection
Yeah.
between what you do and what I do there.
And it seems like yes, exactly from what you talk about in the movement you've started is, obviously the flip side of that is has the positivity and the happiness and the satisfaction and the joy and all the cool things that come from that different mindset, that mind space. And when I talk to my groups, I'm sure do the same thing. What I'm talking about doesn't cost a penny. It doesn't cost you, it doesn't even cost extra time. It's a different way of looking and seeing the world. And, you not suddenly have to say, now I have to go to the gym 4 times a week. No, just when you engage with people, are you open? Are you saying yes? Are you contributing? It's not just to say yes, but are you then asking back to them? Are you putting it back in their court to kind of build something out of what you have together?
When you go, because I love this UVC you've got here. When someone is going through something challenging and they are sharing it with you, and I've heard that it can be patronizing to simply say, "I understand, Steve."
Yeah.
So, what would you recommend? How do we demonstrate understanding? How do we make that a practical thing?
Well, the couple things come to mind. One is obviously choose your own words, but I think one of the toughest things you can say is that I know how you feel or I understand. I mean, it's because you really don't. I mean, no matter what, even let's say you just lost your mom and they lost their mom, they could have had a much better relationship. And who knows what, or had things left unsaid. You don't know what they really went through. The best way to do this is say, gosh, pick your words, but man, that's got to be tough. Or, even I can't imagine, or tell me more, or
Mhm.
how's that going? It's got to be tough. So it's simply I heard you, I'm understanding, and now I'm gonna just keep that avenue open. But it reminds me of a great study, and now it escapes me who the social scientist was, but it's easily Googleable. But it was a waiter and waitress study they did at like an Applebee's type place. And all it is, they had two groups of waiters and waitresses, go out and serve their people. And one group said, just go knock yourself out and do your thing. And the other one said, can you do two specific things when they come in? Can you please write down their order? I mean, no, if it's two people or one, but write down their order. This isn't a memory contest, right? Just write down the order. And then can you play it back to them, their exact order, without commentary? So if someone says, I wanted the Cobb salad dressing on the side, extra this, hold that, whatever, you don't say, oh my gosh, that's our number one seller, you'll love it, or chef loves to make it, that's my favorite, because it suddenly goes from being about the patron, the person ordering, and now it's about you. Just like oh, your mom has cancer, oh gosh, so does mine. Not important. What you do is you say, so you want it, so I heard you say Cobb salad dressing on the side, extra this, blah, 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 correct? And then talk about people then, when they had that happen, on average gave 70%, 70% higher tips to the wait staff that did that. When they were circled back with by the researchers saying, why do you give such a generous tip to Jody or Frank or whoever it was? They would say, I felt like they got me. I felt like I loved hearing my order said out loud in front of people. I felt like I was unique. I was special. And all they did was play back what they heard. So at the very least, if you can say, so I'm hearing you say whatever. I mean, again, you're not patronizing, just I heard you, because let's be honest, Will, a lot of us, and myself included, we have moments or even extended periods of time when we don't really listen. We just really don't listen. And then
I'm sorry, what'd you say?
That undercuts the UVC. Yes. And he said to me, yeah, what were you talking about? Yeah, you're on your phone. What was that, Steve? I kind of got bored in the middle of that. I heard about a convertible earlier on.
There's only 5,000 people watching. Exactly. No big deal.
Yeah.
That is so well, to me, that flies in the face of one thing I heard. And that was that idea that, which I like your take on it better. And that is that idea of excellent choice, Mr. Hughes, in a restaurant. You know what I mean? That false inflation of the ego, as opposed to simply serving your role in a good way.
And here's why that probably bothers you. And I bet there's probably research out there to say it doesn't work, because suddenly, let's say you make the weirdest order ever, or even the coolest order, Cobb salad, dressing on the side, whatever. If I then say, excellent choice, Mr. Hughes, that's now my judgment. It's now about me. I'm now saying, that's a good judgment. You're approved by me. That completely is consistent with just repeat what they said with no commentary, with no input, no personal story, no whatever. Let it be about them. They're the ones who are ordering, and again, let them have the day.
My background was a church minister, and I would do a lot of counseling. And one of the things they taught us in counseling was very similar to that. And that is that if you come to me and tell me something heartbreaking, I don't go, I get it, or I've been there, or anything like that. You say something along the lines that would help them own their emotion, which is, that must make you feel very sad. You must feel hurt, or something like that.
Absolutely.
This is great. We've only got a few more minutes, and I want to ask you, there's a common misconception about success that the science of happiness, I think, addresses really well. And you talked about that. Share that, would you please?
Yeah. So what's interesting is in doing my programs where I involve improv, if you had met me on a plane, I'd say, what do you do for a living? I help people look and sound smart when they talk. That's what I do, right? That's what my job is. I've also incorporated, as I'm doing that, real-time resilience, which uses improv principles, et cetera. In doing that, I've discovered and incorporated also the idea of the science of happiness, which we really have it all backwards. We think, work hard, get these things, I'll be happy, right? It's an end result. When you look at research by a couple of, Lee Berminski, if I was saying her name right, Acker and Brooks and these other folks are out there. It really says mindset, attitude, and dare I say satisfaction, happiness, just your contentment and your starting point is here. People who are happy tend to work more effective and more productive. They make fewer errors. Happy salespeople sell 37% more. Happy doctors make 19% faster, more accurate diagnoses. So it's happiness, outlook, mindset first, then it's job performance, and then I'll feel successful. So it's like the train and the caboose got switched up.
Boy, that
And
is so true. I'm
yeah.
sorry. You just sort of blew my mind here. Yeah, go ahead,
Yeah,
please.
yeah. So and I hear too, and I want to recognize that there might be, and plenty of people are saying, well, you have no idea how difficult my life is right now. And that's true, 100%. Or I'm going through it, I'll never forget when my father died, it was a week before the shutdown. And then a week later, I basically lost almost 6 months of revenue because all my
Yeah.
in-person speaking events just, went away. And a good friend of mine died of COVID, less than 50 years old. It was a lot at one time. Like, I'm going to be happy. How do I just, be really great? But the research does say, you talk about the way you start is to say, think about the things in your life. You almost do two columns. What do I have control over and what do I not have control over? And really be specific and then say, I don't freak out on the stuff I can't do, but even the little tiny things that are in my control, well, what can I do and make happen? And that becomes your starting point. I know Sean Acker talks about it as the Zorro circle. If you remember the story of Zorro, where he's being trained by his senior, his mentor. And he says, I want to be a great sword fighter. Do all this stuff. He drew a circle around him and said, just be good at this space right now. Just own this little tiny circle, right? Be good inside there. As you get better, we'll expand your circle. And when people can feel mastery and control over the things that are just within their control and can think about it in a more positive way, that could be kind of that tumbling, overflowing beginning point. But and just for me, by the way, to close the loop, when I was sitting there in April of 2020, business blown up, my second parent died, just couldn't go outside, just nothing. I couldn't get out of bed. I was just like, why even try? Why even, my wife ended up saying, just please take a shower, please eat some food. And actually, I went to online church, and I like regular church. I haven't been a big fan of online church, but we're now back in real in face to face. But I heard somebody that morning when the pastor basically said, think of your clients if you're in business as a neighbor. Think about your clients as a neighbor. And if your neighbor had a need, what would you do for them? And suddenly, light bulb went off. And I then went and offered every client I had a free virtual program. So I'm like, just like no strings attached. Just, I'm going to help you out. You're in a difficult spot. I'm in a difficult spot. Let's just help each other out and do what we can. And that was the most life-giving, exciting, energizing thing I could do. I got outside of myself when my circumstances had blown up, and by having a focus on other people, the things I could control, and suddenly that just became a cascading excitement and energy that actually led to a lot of great business, but also led to a lot of great relationships and made me much happier.
That's wonderful. And this idea, speaking of church, seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness and all good things. And by the way, righteousness has nothing to do with morality when you study the original writing, but it has to do with being aligned with what is good and what is life affirming and makes you happy. And that's what's important.
That's
Steve,
great.
this is great. This has been the fastest 30 minutes. Thanks for kicking off this series for us. Tell us your email address, because I have a lot of former speaking clients who now watch these jump starts, and I want you to check out Steve, possibly for your next event. I'm sure he would be better in person than he is here in this little tight space. So what's your URL, Steve?
Yeah. So, well, the URL is hityourstride.com. And if you, you want to put it in the chat or wherever, but my email is steve@hityourstride.com. And that's my thought in life is everyone has a natural stride length. You overstride, you tire out, you understride, you're not giving it all you can, but you hit that middle perfect stride. And that's when you're firing on all cylinders.
I love that, as opposed to constantly trying to rush, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Exactly.
In your life. And it's Steve at
hityourstride.com.
So check out Steve. I'm sure we will never meet on the road, but I'm so glad we had this opportunity to meet in person.
Well, and I've never been to the Keys, but my goodness, I'll certainly, if I'm ever down there, I would love to just knock on the door. Maybe we can have a cup of coffee together and lose some more hair follicles.
That would be awesome. And do me a favor, just, say, Will, I want to come down here and talk business, and we'll write the whole thing off as a business expense.
Even better. I love it. Yeah.
Real quick, let me
the whole business expense.
Give everybody a chance to share. Steve, if you'll hang on with me just a minute, everybody, if you would, please. This is your opportunity to like, comment, and share. And any passing questions real quick for Steve, and then we're going to have to let him go. Kathy says, share. That is awesome.
Kathy,
Heather
you
says,
rock.
yay.
Way to go, sister.
Great thoughts to absorb today. Thanks, Steve and Will.
Thank you, Heller.
Yeah.
Heather Ellis.
Heather Ellis.
I said Heller. I kind of combine your whole name there. So, but yeah.
And
Heather,
those
great.
of you who are watching later, and that's where we get 95% of our watches is on YouTube as a podcast. When we email it out, be sure and leave comments as well. I will respond to them myself. And when possible, I'll see if I can link Steve back in. Steve, thank you so much. Where are you headed next? Do you know?
I am going to New Orleans, but
New
it'll be
Orleans.
kind of fun. So that'll be nice.
Good for you. I was there last year. I am going to
I would say, how about yourself? Where are you going as I bounce it back?
Yeah, I'm going to Myrtle Beach, South Carolina for 3 days. So,
oh, very nice.
Speaking. Yeah, that was one of those where it's like, we can't pay you a lot of money, but we can give you several days at the hotel. And I was like,
isn't that a great, this job we can trade off however we want to make it happen. So
yeah. Thank you all so much for being here. I've got another guest I'm going to be interviewing tomorrow. Look forward to that. In fact, I will foreshadow real quick and tell you who it is. Our guest tomorrow morning is going to be, that's what I thought, Nikki Bush will be joining us tomorrow. So once again, all of you, thank you, Steve. I see we have one more comment here. I want to bring that in. Oh, she says, Patricia says, he's great. Thanks for sharing him.
Patricia, woohoo.
There you go.
Have an awesome day. I can tell by the spirit of the people in your group and your followers are that they kind of get it. So I'm excited to either reinforce an idea they already knew or maybe give them a new thought they hadn't had before. But I know they can jump on and just make it happen.
And the name of the book is Captivate.
Exactly.
Check out Captivate by Steve Hughes. Yeah. Check it out. All right, everybody, enjoy today, and I will see you tomorrow.
No more complaining people. Their lives are changing. We're flying high, creating a complaint-free world. No more complaining people. Their lives are changing. We're flying high, creating a complaint-free world. No more.